Welcome back, golfers. Today we're going to talk about the lead wrist position and two positions that might make you want to quit the game of golf. Stay tuned. So our lead wrist position in the golf swing is so important. It controls so much of what the face does through the golf ball and during the golf swing. So today we're going to try to get you in a little bit better position in your lead wrist so it's more consistent and it's a little bit more effortless going through the golf ball. And it'll put you in a stronger position as well as when we hit the ball so you won't get injured. So the first thing we want to talk about with that lead wrist position is our grip, because the grip sets us up for impact, and if we're in the wrong position, then that lead wrist is going to have to manipulate throughout the whole golf swing to get us to square up the club face, and we don't want to do that. We want to make sure when we come to impact, our lead wrist is nice and flat, our trail wrist is nice and flat, and we're in a very strong position. So how do we get there? Number one, we got to focus on that grip. So when we set up the grip, what we're looking to do is, pretty simple way is just set up a little trigger in that wrist. You can kind of see me do it right there, a little trigger in that hand, and then the grip is going to sit kind of in the bottom, like a pinky or a finger width away from the bottom of that pinky, and then the grip kind of rolls, the hands just kind of roll around it. And if you turn it the opposite direction, you kind of see the knuckles. The knuckles here are working right down that shaft line. And that's really important because then it gets the club more in our fingers and allows us to hinge better, rather than you see a lot of golfers with very worn out palms, and they get the club in their palm of their hand. And what that's going to do is when you get into impact, coming down, you're not going to be able to hinge that club. You can already see that handle is going to get torqued. You can see that wrist start to bend in a way that it's not very comfortable in order to get that club into 90 degrees. So when we get the club in the fingers where it's working down the shaft rather than in this position, we're going to be in a lot better place on the way down. So that's number one. Get it into the fingers right there, hook it right there in the left hand. We bring it right around, and when we're looking down, we see that V going towards the trail shoulder. Or an easier visual for you is when you're looking down, you see two knuckles in that left hand when it's down the bottom. The other thing we should see is that the top of the grip should be the inside part of our left leg when you're looking down. Or if you're looking at your zipper line, it should never be behind or on the zipper line. It should always be a little bit in front. And if we're holding it just in our left hand, it kind of just naturally falls to that spot. You see that nice straight line coming down. So when I'm taking golf swings, that's the first thing I'm going to do is set that hand properly, with that grip, because that's going to set me up for the bottom of the swing at impact. So then the other hand just kind of comes together, meets it. So you can see those two V's are going the same direction towards that trail shoulder, and we're in the right place to start swinging. So let's talk about some of the positions you're going to get into in the golf swing. So using that lead wrist, so the first one we're going to talk about is the takeaway. And the takeaway puts you to toe up position, right there, toe up position. And what I want to see in that lead wrist is that lead wrist is nice and flat in this position. And you can see from there that toe, or the lead edge, is slightly kicked in, not straight vertical, and definitely not open, just slightly kicked in. As we take it further back into L position, that club is now going to be going straight towards our target. What we don't want to see is it over there or back behind us in that position. We want to see it straight towards our target, and you're also going to see that lead wrist right there in front of me and nice and flat. As we keep going up to the top, another position we want to get into is a nice flat position with that lead wrist at the top of the swing. And that's going to allow me to just maintain that coming down. So if we start coming down, transition on the way down, nice and flat lead wrist, toe up position again, flat lead wrist. You might even feel the knuckles down at this point. And then as we come into the ball, flat wrist position again. see that from this angle. L position, toe up position, impact position. And what you're going to see is that glove, or that logo of the glove, is going to go towards the target more. I don't want to see it towards, out in front of you. And as you come through, then that lead wrist will start to cup and go through. So there's not a lot of movement in that lead wrist. It basically stays flat, 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 flat again, flat there, and flat at impact. And then it'll release. So that kind of takes away some of that manipulation that you're going to do in your golf swing. If you start cupping and then have to uncup through the transition, or even try, you're probably not going to be able to do it on the way down, and then come into impact and then you're releasing again, it's going to be much more difficult to be consistent in your swings and in your shot making abilities. So I told you guys there's two positions that would make you want to quit the game of golf, and those both are associated with our lead wrist. And one of those positions is a cup in the top of the wrist, which we don't get rid of. So if we get to the top of the swing and we start our downswing and we are cupped, and we continue on that downswing and we're still cupped, you can see that lead edge is way open. You might have seen this if you've videotaped yourself. And then when you come into impact, that cup is not going to go anywhere. You're going to see this at impact, and that could end up being a shank or a straight block. That face is wide open. You see the glove right there. You see the logo of the glove aiming right at the screen here out in front of you, rather than down to the left. You'll feel what the other thing you're going to feel is when you're coming down that line, you're going to feel that arm pressing away from your body rather than pulling tight to that left side or that pec of our body, and staying nice and compressed as we come into impact and then through. So that is big issue number one, cup wrist that doesn't uncup. You might see that in a lot of baseball players do that. If you're thinking about a baseball swing, they got used to doing this, big cupped, hands pressed out, and they get into that position. Most of you have probably played baseball, and those habits carry over into our golf swing. So it takes some training. We'll do some drills here in a little bit about how to change that so we can get that wrist in a little bit flatter position. The other position that I see a lot of golfers get into is either based on their grip is too strong with how they come into impact, they don't get open enough, or this elbow here, you see that elbow stays straight, and then that face gets shut, and then you get to the top of the swing, and what we see with that strong grip is that face goes straight towards the sky. And it could be that you're in a decent position with the wrist, but if that club face is straight towards the sky, it's going to be really hard to get into a position where you can actually make good contact with the golf ball, because most of you are not going to get that far ahead. I'll show you in this direction, that far ahead to square up that position. That is where it becomes a factor of frustration, heavy frustration, of when you're swinging and you just can't make good contact with the ball. You see a lot of shots hitting off the hosel. You see a lot of shots just duck hooking low left. And if you're seeing your club face at the sky and it looks like that, and your wrist hasn't bowed to match that lead wrist position, or that lead edge position, kind of like a Dustin Johnson, then your wrist isn't going to come back and in through that transition and line back up. It's going to stay, if you're like this and that club is in this position, it's going to stay shut. And when you come into the ball, it's going to be down here at toe up position, and you come in, it's going to be dead shut, and you're going to be trying to save it. And that's another reason why you might see this, where the shoulder's shut, and you'll see that position coming in impact, because you're just trying to save it, and so you can't release off the ball. So if you already feel like you can't release through the golf shot, Check your grip, number one, because that will probably show you that your grip is too strong either with the right hand or the left, and it's putting that face so it's going straight up to the sky at the top of the swing. Or number two, watch that elbow. When you go back, it might be going back like this rather than hinging, letting that elbow drop underneath you, which will let it set better so that lead edge can line up with that lead wrist position. So flat left wrist position allows that club face to set right towards, you see that lead edge is right in that wrist position. I drop down, it's going to put it right in the right position there. So if you're one of those golfers that get into those two habits, either getting cupped, maybe in that position, or even that position impact, or you get the face where your grip's probably too strong and that face is way up like this, I'm going to give you guys some drills to get that fixed. So the first one that I'm going to show you guys is just a chip drill, and it's an isolated backswing, and all I want you to do is get set up, look down, see those two knuckles, feel your grip in your fingers, in those fingers a little bit more. Two knuckles in the left hand, nice and comfortable, right hand just meets it. If you're looking down and you're seeing your grip like this, and you're seeing your thumb, if you can actually physically see your thumb, your grip in your right hand is too strong. You're probably going to get that position where it's straight up into the sky. So if you're like in this position where it's covering up with the fingers, it needs to be covering up like that. So it's covering up right into that thumb pad on top of that thumb. Cover up that thumb. That's going to put you in the right position coming in. So that'll be first part. So set up, thumbs covered up, ready to go. Now we're going to take the club back into toe up position, and we're going to flatten that left wrist. So we're going to come back, we're going to flatten that left wrist, and then from there we're just going to go through to finish. So all we're trying to feel is what that body should be feeling at toe up position on the way down, and then just rotation to the finish. So let me do it one more time. Flat left wrist, from there through impact. You're going to feel that left knuckle more down, that logo, that glove, or the back of your hand more towards the target, and then just working through. All right, so after you've done that 5 times, 10 times, 20, 30, 40 times, it's up to you of how many times you really got to do it to start feeling comfortable with that left wrist being flat, because once you put it in motion, your habits are going to start taking over. And if your habits are to cup coming into impact, then you're going to do that naturally. You're just going to, we fall into our natural patterns, and we got to try to break our patterns when we're doing these drills. So the next part of that, once you get comfortable with the isolation pause, is you're going to do the same length back and through, but now you're going to do it in full motion. So just short little chip shot, back and through, flat left wrist, flat at impact, and then let it release. Being able to release is a really important part of the golf swing, and I want you guys to be able to do that. So let's watch that one more time. We're going to go flat left wrist back, flat left wrist at impact. Once you've done that enough times to get the feeling of it, you're just going to start lengthening. Pretty simple. We're just going to start lengthening and building a little bit more distance, a little bit more speed in our backswing and our follow through. So now we'll go to L, bottom of our transition kind of a position, and we're just going to think flat left wrist, flat left wrist. Not trying to overthink this. Flat left wrist, flat left wrist. When we come to impact, that logo's towards the target. And then once you got that feeling down, then you can extend it up to the top. And before you start just swinging from the top, I want you to just have the club come up and set, and then we're going to do a couple pump drills just like this. We're going to take it to the top. I want you to set it, and I want you to look at it and go, okay, yes, that is flat. Yes, that's even flatter. That's bowed. That's cupped. So you can kind of feel that, where it should be right there. And then from there, just start that transition which we've talked about, just squaring up the knees and trying to get that feeling of that wrist staying flat. Because what we don't want to do is get to the top, be flat, and then do that, and now the club is cupped. When I come down to toe-up position, the face is wide open, and we're going to be in trouble. So we want to be up to the top, nice flat wrist. First move down, still nice and flat. And we do that a couple times just to get the feeling of it. Now we're back to where we were before, and we go through. So let's break this down just a little bit. So go to the top of the swing. We get the flat left wrist. We'll make the transition, take it back to the top, make flat left wrist, make the transition, and then from there through to impact. So we can take that position where we did it before, and we're still just getting the same feels through the impact position. And once you've done that enough times to really get that left wrist in a position that you feel comfortable and that it is flat, now you can start taking those full swings and get into that full speed, and hopefully you'll maintain that position through the golf swing. So getting set up. And all the way through, maintaining that flat wrist position all the way through the whole motion. Thank you guys for watching this week. If you struggle with that left wrist, focus on it. Do lots of repetitions. It's not something that's going to be easily overcame just by taking golf ball after golf ball after golf ball in your swings. You're going to have to isolate that position and learn a new feeling, which is going to turn into new muscles in your golf swing that you're using. When you do it correctly though, and you feel that lead wrist flatten out, and as you come down, what you're going to feel is a more connected golf swing. You're going to feel like this side can actually rotate properly, where it's just flat wrist, and then it just rotates using your lower body, your proper biomechanics of your golf swing, which we've talked about. If you haven't watched any of my videos in the past, we've talked about lots of that. And it's going to make it so much easier because you don't have to manipulate through the golf shot. That wrist won't be moving all over the place. It just goes flat, stays flat to the impact, and then it will release off. If you can do that, you're going to hit much more consistent golf shots and get better impact. So do that drill I showed you, and remember, your feet aren't working, your swing's not working. I'll catch you guys next time.